He is one of the top 10 architects in the world. He has authored many books and articles. He was invited to lecture at many universities around the world. But he chose to come and stay in Vietnam for 12 years. He has designed wonderful architectural works and published passionate poetry and photography collections. He is the Spanish architect Salvador Perez Arroyo.
His architectural work is so magnificent.
He came here and he could contribute to the community, and he felt so loved and so integrated into the Vietnamese country.
Bác yêu Việt Nam đến mức mà bác nói là tôi muốn sống phần còn lại cuộc đời của mình tại Việt Nam.
Hello and welcome to Talk Vietnam. We are now at Quảng Ninh Museum and Library, a cluster in Hồng Hải, Hạ Long City on the shore of Hạ Long Bay, a natural wonder of the world. And this architectural design by Salvador Perez Arroyo has helped the museum, the Quảng Ninh Library, win the Works of 2013 prize. And today we are very lucky to be able to talk to architect Salvador Perez Arroyo right at the heart of this museum of his work. And first of all, thank you so much for joining us on Talk Vietnam. And may I say congratulations on this magnificent work of art museum, because I saw so many people coming and we're sitting in such a very special environment. We have the Bạch Đằng wood sticks here right beside us, and there's a boat-shaped design attached to it. So can you tell us more about this special place?
Well, thank you before. I like you enjoy because I think it's a very popular building now. And I think it's because people enjoy the objects, of course, like in a collection, but they enjoy the space. And the space is particularly interesting for children and everybody, and they like to come and to see.
So, I mean, from what you say, you can see exactly in the eyes of the children. They look so curious and excited when they came here and see the things. So where did you get the inspiration or idea?
Well, I mean, the building came from two different explanations, you know. One is because the background here is so beautiful. I thought to do like a mirror. So when you come to Hạ Long Bay and you see the landscape and people ask one architect to do a building, the architect has to say, but the nature is so beautiful, you cannot do any beautiful building here. So, and I thought if I do a mirror, the building is beautiful because the place is beautiful. This is one point, starting point. Second one, don't forget this is a coal mine area. It's a province that is very much engaged in the history with the coal mine in very dramatic times, in modern times, you know, in the colonial times. So it has a very long history, and the black color is going to be inspired by coal, you know. So it's a symbol to the existing coal, the old tradition in the province, you know.
Right. And then you spent 4 years here to build.
Well, I spent a long time. Sometimes helped by by people from the museum, you know. But I organize very much the way to exhibit. And we are now in a room, it's a boat.
Right.
So it's inspired in the Mongols fights. I did the boat, and I did these columns of lights that represent the sticks, the big sticks the Vietnamese they put in the sea, waiting the tide is coming down, you know. And this inspiration makes the room. And so I'm collecting pieces of the history, studying in 4 years. I study many things about all the history of Vietnam, and I try to exhibit in the best way.
So this is not just a museum or a library, it's actually a work of art and culture and history all together. So you must dig very deep to understand Vietnam at different layers, right? From history to culture to art and everything. How did you do that?
Well, I tried to do it. I read a lot. I love Vietnam. I know a little the history. I'm very cannot say very much. I mean, I'm shy about that. I'm not an expert in history, just read books, you know. But I'm passionate with the history, and to Vietnam history, and that's very interesting. With many different times, many different wars, many different cultures, you know. Vietnam is an attracting point. It's like a hub in the with the cultures. I think it's because you can have so many inspiration, and of course I did it.
So besides architecture, fine arts is also a big source of inspiration for our architect, Salvador Arroyo. And he has a favorite place to go and see paintings and art of Vietnam. He took me there and gave me a beautiful lecture about it. Yes. So Salvador, today you bring me to the Vietnam Fine Art Museum. You must have a lot to tell about it.
Yeah, I love it, and I remember I talk about this museum in my book, The Happy Street, you know, because the architecture is very interesting. So I want to show you this sculpture after the Bien Phu, and I love it because the flexibility to the body and the way the woman is just watching maybe in the landscape, you know, a very far view. And it's moving, and the way all the anatomy, you know, is adapted to the land, the hands, the arms. It's very symbolic, and it's very representing so much about your history, you know.
And it was made in 58, so long time ago.
It's a glimpse to a very special moment, you know. It's not something winning or something losing or something suffering, you know. Is the woman is just watching, and this makes the sculpture extremely powerful. It's a painting done in 55, and I love it particularly because the relationship between the scale to the bodies, the human moving beings moving in the landscape, a very huge landscape, a very special sky. With my camera, I zoom in, and the bodies are perfectly done, so they are really very skillful. Even they are not very big in the painting, but the quality of the description is very good. So this is a painting that is talking about the human being and the landscape. So I'm very happy with this meeting here. Because I know the paintings by the position, I remember very well, and today when we came together, I was...
Salvador also revealed to Talk Vietnam the other artworks that impressed him and proved to be a source of inspiration.
Many times.
Many times.
During his decade plus in Hanoi, Salvador has spent much time visiting the Vietnam Fine Arts Museum. Every time he drops by, he contemplates the museum's exhibits from his perspective. This approach enables him to enjoy the beauty of the time imprinted on each artwork, collection, and architecture that flows through Vietnamese history.
You talk about the importance of how to exhibit things in a special order.
Well, I believe one museum is a collection, but one museum is a communication system. And all architects that they work in museum, they need to study how to communicate. If you don't communicate, people doesn't come. They will come scientific people. They will come people studying. They will come scholars, you know, researching, but not the families. But if you do things easy to understand, and the families, they understand children's enjoy, they talk about and they come back and they, you know. So exhibition and the way to exhibit is the key to an important museum.
Salvador Perez Arroyo's impressive work can be found in many places in Vietnam, such as Phu Quoc, Da Nang, Ho Chi Minh City, and especially in Quảng Ninh. Quảng Ninh Museum was inaugurated in October 2013. It was crowned Building of the Year 2013 in the Vietnam Urban Development Planning Association's prestigious annual ASHUI Awards. Quảng Ninh Museum has become a popular destination, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors annually.
Mình thấy là thiết kế thì rất là ấn tượng ạ. Mỗi một tầng thì sẽ có những cái thiết kế riêng. Mình thấy là các hiện vật thì sắp xếp rất là khoa học và mình thấy rất là thích ạ.
Khi mà đến đây thì cũng có thấy một cái khác biệt so với các nơi là ở đây là tôi thấy là có bao trùm cái không gian, nó làm một cái biểu tượng hình con thuyền bằng gỗ. Đấy thì là đây là một cái nét đặc sắc. Tìm hiểu tại đây thì kiến trúc sư có lấy ý tưởng từ trận chiến Bạch Đằng của nhân dân ta thì là để xây dựng lên, thấy là nó là ấn tượng.
Inspired by a lump of coal, a common rock type in Quảng Ninh, Salvador turned the Quảng Ninh Museum and Library complex into a unique and artistic construction. In addition to the Quảng Ninh Museum, Salvador also left his mark on Cẩm Phả City Square, inspired by the beauty of the mine workers. The project's defining highlight is 84 golden wonder senna trees planted in a square grid. The yellow flower on a red background represents the working class and the colors of the national flag. This tree blossomed in May, around Uncle Ho's birthday and the tourist season. The colorful impact leaves an unforgettable impression on tourists' hearts whenever they visit Cẩm Phả City. This amenity project has also been selected as the flagship of this year's 10th anniversary of Cẩm Phả City being established.
Now I want to go back a little bit. I want to understand what brought you to Vietnam in the very first place.
I came by chance. They invited me to be on the jury to the Opera House in competition in Hanoi. And I contact people and they invite me to work in the country, and I had a fast view. When I was a student, I was very much engaged with the problems with the American war and so on, you know. And coming back here is like, I say coming back, because it's like I came back to something I was very important in my life when I was, and I started to work, and that's okay.
And what year was that?
2010. At the first time, at the same time I was working abroad in Italy, was finishing something, you know. But I was always dreaming to come back here and to concentrate it on the country, and I already did. Now I'm 100% here.
So over time, you have been here for quite some time. Has that first impression changed a bit after, more than 12 years here?
Well, also the country changed very much in this time, you know. I remember the Vietnam, when I came here before, Vietnam today is a big difference. So Vietnam today is an explosion of young people and the young life. So it's an incredible potential country. But no potential is really now. No, we cannot say in the future, no. The present in Vietnam is very interesting, it's very powerful. So many young people following all new technologies, all new platforms, everything, you know, so it's so active. I think it's a very interesting country. And now, coming back, I saw very long distance between 2010 and 2022, a very long distance. But I was lucky. I was walking beside the country, and I was very lucky.
So architect Salvador Arroyo is very knowledgeable about traditional Vietnamese architecture, and I had an opportunity to hear him share about his knowledge in a special trip to the Temple of Literature. So let's join us.
Architect Salvador has visited many places in Hanoi, and today he wants to share with Talk Vietnam a location for which he has a great fondness.
Classical elements to the doors Vietnamese architecture are the three doors. You know, you have always two, you have the central one, and you repeat in this place here. If you go to Hue, you have the same system. So they are the main door, only reserved to the very special occasions, to the main people, you know, and the ancillary doors that can be used normally, you know. This kind of idea repeated many times. And this is very, very beautiful.
So the door is a very unique architectural
Very unique and very
element.
special. I think it should be impossible to be thinking in Vietnamese architecture without doors. This is one element, but we have more.
Right.
And I will show you inside.
So the door is one element,
Yes.
and I'm so curious to see other elements as well.
So we have three more elements.
So we are standing in the garden of the Temple of Literature, and you are talking about the second element in the Vietnamese architecture. What is so special about the garden here?
Well, I mean, the garden is, the special thing in the garden is the order, is the way it's controlled, the layout, the symmetry, the elements, they're like a furniture inside. Everything shows the visitors that everything is controlled. Everything is following one order. Everything is following one rule. That's the most interesting thing, you know. Also, in the way the garden is fixed in directions. But this is much more normal. What is very, very special is the way the nature is controlled. I think this is quite impressive.
Yeah.
You know?
And thank you for your angle and your view of this very beautiful historical site in Hanoi, and it gives us Vietnamese a more diverse view of the treasure that we have in the city.
One of the elements that Salvador always pays attention to when visiting ancient buildings in Vietnam, such as the Temple of Literature, is the tile roof. According to him, a tile roof creates a protective layer, but it is still elegant and soft, as if flying through the air. This makes him feel at ease when visiting the Temple of Literature. Salvador also shared more about the harmonious combination of nature in ancient Vietnamese architecture. Trees and water help create the landscape and spark curiosity and interest in those who visit the Temple of Literature.
We had a talk with each other visiting the Temple of Literature.
Yeah.
And then during that talk, you shared a lot about your observation of Vietnamese traditional architecture.
Yes.
So you must have a lot of knowledge about that. What you really like about the traditional Vietnamese architecture?
I love in the Vietnamese architecture, I love very much the way they control the space inside. Because Vietnamese architecture is very much looking inward. So they are not very much interested in big perspective like you see in Paris or you see in these cities, you know. So the Vietnamese cities, they are growing like an organism, you know, with many different cells and many different areas,
Right.
you know. And they are looking inward all the time. So they are looking for the space inside and the private space, you know, the mysterious. You know, I mean, the Vietnamese architecture is very mysterious. Has inside this kind of things that you want to discover, the shadows, the small symbols. You know, when you visit pagodas, it's the same concept to the space. You know, this is it's the most attractive thing. Of course, the constructive elements, the roofs, okay, yeah, that's going to be very interesting. But the main concept behind, not even the shape. Where they are looking, these guys in the history, was to qualify interior spaces. But the interior space reflects the nature, because it has very big gardens. Right. It's a nature controlled. And so is the universe. So you have everything inside. And that's quite important.
Yes. With the awareness that Vietnamese architects should keep their identity and value the cultural aspects of Vietnam in their design, What do you think that how does a city create a unique urban identity and image in users' mind?
Well, now this is a complementary question, and I agree with you. Modern architecture is not possible without modern planification to the cities. You know, that's very important because now we are doing much more public spaces, and we understand the public space is not the little road you find in the old quarter in Hanoi. That is one way, but one of the one is to have beautiful squares, beautiful places with coffees, and you know that the people can meet in a different way than they did before. Because I mean, at the same time, don't forget now the modern society, even also in Vietnam, like everywhere, people like the street and they go the families outside and they do a kind of behavior, a kind of life that wasn't exist before in 19th century, of course, you know. So then the city has to be planned, has to be designed very careful. And this is the most serious problem today in Vietnam. So I think in the way the cities are growing up, because you have an economic boom, you know, that can be a problem if you don't control. And particularly this kind of planning to the cities, they have to be considering the way the architecture has to be integrated with a little freedom but a little control. So it has to be a balance in between. And I believe in these buildings, Vietnamese architects, they have a big future because they can do very well, you know. And I trust these generations, you know. I was in the juries, in many juries in Vietnam. They invite me to be today. And I saw a lot of young production. And I'm very enthusiastic about these people.
Yeah. Is there any kind of trade-off that, I mean, we should take into consideration between of urban development and preserving the cultural and the unique
Well,
identity?
everything comes together. I mean, in the city you need to design the new city, but to preserve the old city and to restore the old city makes explain to the visitors and to the citizens the roots to the country. And I think this is really very important. Hanoi in the future, well preserved and well restored, will be a city that will get a lot of visitors. And for the economy to the city is very important too, because there are many people living about, with the tourists, you know.
Yeah.
But if you need to give something, so I mean, it's very important to show something. Mm-hmm. And Hanoi is full of potentials, the old one and the new one. So they need to do new icons, new landmarks, but at the same time, restoring the history.
Yeah.
That's very important, no?
Currently, Salvador is living in Ho Chi Minh City, but he still holds a special love for Hanoi. The capital left a lifelong impression on him, so Salvador wrote a collection of poems dedicated to Hanoi to show his love.
Ông Salvador là một nghệ sĩ thực thụ về công trình cũng như là về đời sống cũng như là về tài hoa, hội họa, thơ văn, và cảm xúc của ông đối với con người rất là gần gũi, và ông tiếp cận được những con người Việt Nam bằng một cái bước đi rất là nhẹ nhàng.
Salvador is not only a talented architect and romantic poet, but he is also a photographer. He devoted much time to creating a collection of 80 black and white photos of Vietnam's urban space and the lives of its inhabitants. Salvador captured many special and emotional moments he encountered, from street artists, girls visiting temples, and street dances. He wished to convey a positive message about the life and culture of modern Vietnam through his photos. Salvador chose Vietnam as an inspiring destination, but he also fell in love with this country and set up a home here.
Now I want to focus on your book.
My book.
Yeah, on your book.
Yeah.
And in 2020, you published the book Happy Street.
Yeah.
And then you took so many photos of, the street life and of Hanoi and in black and white only.
Yes.
Tell us more about that project.
Well, I mean, this book was an exhibition at the same time. I was maybe 3 years or 4 years just catching up images on the streets, but I was looking for the modern life. There are very few images dedicated to some traditional clothes or something like that. You know? So Vietnam to me is a modern country. Of course, I know the tradition, but in many countries they exist as well, you know. But I am very much interested in the lives of the young people, in the people working in the streets, in the very different things you have here. For instance, people selling luxury in the street, in the border to the road, and the motorbikes stopping behind like it was like a shop or something like that. Yeah. And I did the pictures, but I use the pictures for interpretation. So, and I interpret not only what I see, but what maybe is behind.
So, Happy Street. Why did you choose the name Happy Street for this?
Because the street is very happy. In Vietnam, there are very happy streets. So you see people happy. And I think this is very, I mean, I cannot put any other name. I did the pictures in the street, and I found the street full of life. So I say Happy Street. So the street is like a celebration area. It's always celebrating something, you know.
And then why did you do it in black and white?
Well, I explain in the book, color are very beautiful, but the real things, I'm following a Spanish artist. He said the real things you can express, you have to express in black and white. That's my point of view. It's much more, it's stronger, and you focus on the main aspects, you know. Okay, color is a way to experiment, it's a way to do, but sometimes color, many times, is shadowing the reality. And in black and white, you are just focusing very much, you know.
Right. In the introduction of the book, you mentioned something that explains why Vietnam has such a strong attraction to so many foreigners. Can you
well,
elaborate?
We talk a lot about Vietnam is very attractive by many reasons we explained, you know, very, very attractive to the people. Vietnam people coming to Vietnam, they need sometimes to keep silence inside and to listen it, you know. That is very, very important, because many tourists coming to Vietnam, maybe they come in the same way they come to many other countries in Europe, and they see monuments and museums and so on. No, I think in Vietnam is a human component behind that you cannot forget that. And this is the most, to my point of view, is the richest point, you know. Okay, you have beautiful arts, you have beautiful museums, beautiful landscapes, you know, but you have very rich people in the way they understand the philosophy of the life, in the way they tell you. And this is, I'm in love with that, so very much in love with this, you know. And they don't scare to tell you, they communicate, and that's quite interesting.
Yeah, so it is actually the heart and soul of Vietnamese people
yes.
that are quite attractive, yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So we are sitting in a very special place where we can see the Long Bien Bridge right behind us. Tell us more about your love for the bridge.
Yeah, I love very much because it's a symbol, you know. It's the first big construction, 19th century, but because it represents a lot of pieces of architecture you have in Hanoi that they are mixing iron, steel, and concrete. It's the most important one, you know, and the color is very resistant to the humidity, and the color is very beautiful. It's integrated to the city, you know.
How did it help inspire you to write a poem about it?
Because it's a very unique piece, very special. The color is beautiful. I found very poetic, and I found a very strong inspiration. It's a very beautiful place to be. I think in the future there will be like a balcony, a pedestrian area, something with a history to the bridge, you know, and everybody will come.
So construction sites like the Long Biên Bridge or the special architecture of Hanoi with the Indochina style, obviously they inspire you a lot in your thinking of Hanoi.
Well, I mean, the style, architectural style in Hanoi that is very special and unique is combined by two different colors. One is this kind of yellow in the walls, and the other one is the green color. Green color can be done by vegetation, or can be done by the painting the walls and the windows, you know. And this green and yellow, to me, is Hanoi. So when I see that, I think about Hanoi. And this is very, very special.
After hearing Salvador's perspectives about Hanoi, we can resonate more deeply with the peaceful and antique beauty of the capital. We understand, too, why Hanoi has fueled this renowned architect's love and inspiration for his building design work and poems.
Now you are about to release another collection of poems.
Yes.
Yes, inspired by Vietnam. So it seems like you are in Vietnam and you have been working non-stop, like creating arts and designing buildings and writing poems.
This is my psychology.
Yeah.
I enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's not difficult.
What is it about Vietnam that keep you like so motivated like that?
Well, I mean, I told you, I love people very much. I love Vietnam is a country that had very sad times with very strong words, but it's always recovering, you know? So this will of life, at the same time, is a will to forget the bad things and to find the positive points to the future, you know. This is very, very impressive, very, very impressive, because to the end, everything you can read or you can see or you can share is a positive point of view. And you know, they know, and they suffer. They have a story with terrible wars, with many invasions, with many, all the time. But they are positive, and they believe in tomorrow. And when you believe in the next day, you know, that's the most beautiful message you can bring to everybody, you know, to believe in the next day.
And now in 2021, you published a collection of poems.
Poems, yeah.
Yes, about Hanoi. And so what do you want to most convey in that book, your message?
Well, this book is a little personal feelings, you know, personal feelings with people I met and with places I saw. And it's like a summary. When you write poetry, you can remember just flashes you have in your memory, you know? And this is a collection of flashes. Now I'm writing with this idea as well, you know, but it's much more related with places and some special points to the city or special points to the landscape, you know, when I got some experiences, you know.
In 2020, you published the book, This Is Not Architecture, right? Volume 2.
It's a book related with my architecture in Vietnam and abroad. When I saw it is not architecture, I explained a little, you know. Many architects, they worked and they have a main idea to building. But my vision to the building is much more fragmented. So what I do, there are pieces of buildings, you know, and I try to organize later in some common languages, you know. But I come to the project in a different way than many architects. They do only one idea, and the idea is dominant. In many projects I finished, maybe the most beautiful thing is a piece of one staircase or one corner, you know. so it becomes poetic as well, you know. And I said it's not architecture because it's a vision to the reality fragmented, divided in many different pieces.
Yes, yes. And then in there you mentioned architecture is a battle to you. So a battle full of compromise and negotiation.
Yes, yeah. But it's like a orchestra director. So you have many instruments, you know, and I mean, the skill should be to give every instrument a time to express, you know, and of course function at the beginning, even some, I mean, but you need to coordinate that. It's a compromise all the time, between the reality and dreams and so on. But architects, they have to dream. If they don't dream, the life doesn't change.
Salvador Pérez Arroyo, a Spanish architect, poet, and photographer, was born in 1945. He was also a professor at many architecture schools in Spain and other European countries, including the UK, Italy, Germany, Poland, and Denmark. Salvador has received numerous domestic and international architecture awards, making him one of the most eminent architects in Vietnam. The Spanish embassy in Vietnam awarded Salvador the Order of Civil Merit of the Kingdom of Spain, July 2022. This is in recognition of his contribution as a cultural representative of Spain in Vietnam and an outstanding artistic bridge connecting the two nations. The ceremony took place on the 25th anniversary of the opening of the Spanish embassy in Hanoi and the 45th anniversary of Spanish-Vietnamese diplomatic relations.
We want to signal his outstanding achievements as a bridge, as an artistic bridge between Vietnam and Spain. Salvador has produced and built important buildings here in Vietnam, but he's also a teacher, a master in architecture, and he is also has become an important photographer, and he is also becoming a poet here in Vietnam, flourishing as a poet in Vietnam.
He came here and he could contribute to the community, and he felt so loved and so integrated into the Vietnamese country. It just makes it very special, and now he's contributing himself to the buildings and to the architecture, and I'm very fortunate to be able to come here and visit him once a year for the past 12 years, all the years he's been here, and enjoy the culture myself. So yeah, when he's happy, I'm happy for him.
So in the future, you are planning to publish another book about the future of architecture, of global architecture.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm writing a book about I'm getting notes now about what I believe is going to be the new architecture coming. Yeah, it's quite difficult to say. I'm not a magician, you know, but I think I have to do it. I have to forecast the future a little, see with my experience, because I have a long experience. Don't forget, I was working nearby 45 years. 45 years of nearby 50 is half a century.
Yes.
So I saw many things from the beginning. How many things they are forgot, you know, forgot, you know.
Come and go.
Many things die in the road.
Right.
So very few are alive after time, you know. So it's very interesting to think about that.
So maybe can you give us some hints about your forecast of future?
Well, I know, Karen, I think now.
Because the book is not out yet.
But I believe the modern architecture will be much more adapt to the body in a very modern way, very ergonomic, you know. But I think it's quite complicated to talk about that. Và quên đi mọi chữ, okay? So I think I start again. Là bạn tôi và em luôn luôn nói với tôi về chúng ta được bước.
For over a year now, Nguyễn Công Như has been visiting Salvador once a week to teach him Vietnamese.
Bác rất là nghiêm túc luôn, bác như là một sinh viên đại học luôn á. Tôi nói điều đó với bác rất là nhiều lần. Tôi thực sự rất là ngưỡng mộ tinh thần học tập của bác Salvador. Thì ví dụ như bác muốn đọc một cái câu là phải đọc làm cách nào để mà bác cảm thấy là bác đang đọc đúng. Thì bác sẽ luyện tập rất là nhiều lần. Thì tôi ghi âm lại rồi xong hai bác cháu ngồi nghe. Thì bác tìm rất là nhiều cách để mà vận dụng ở tiếng Việt.
Salvador learns Vietnamese to better understand Vietnam's culture and people. It is also how he expresses his love for Vietnam, which he always shares with his friends.
Bác yêu Việt Nam đến mức mà bác nói là tôi muốn sống phần còn lại cuộc đời của mình tại Việt Nam. Bác nhận được rất là nhiều những cái đề nghị làm việc khắp nơi trên thế giới và cả ở Việt Nam. Cho nên là bác hoàn toàn có thể quay về Tây Ban Nha hoặc là về Ý hoặc về Anh, nơi bác đã sinh sống và làm việc rất nhiều năm. Nhưng bác chọn Việt Nam là cái nơi đóng góp những cái công sức của mình, tình yêu nghệ thuật của mình đối với Việt Nam. Nhưng bác cảm thấy Việt Nam là quê hương của bác.
Currently, Salvador is the lead architect of Taco Group in design and architecture. Besides, he travels extensively. He always brings a souvenir back to Vietnam after every trip. Each piece leaves its mark on Salvador House in Ho Chi Minh City. His house is like a miniature art museum. The objects are arranged methodically but have an eye on harmonious aesthetics. That is how Salvador decorates his home in Ho Chi Minh City, his second hometown.
Last time we have a chance to interview your daughter, and she said that you love Vietnam so much, so you moved to Vietnam and live here, and then you have to kind of sacrifice part of your family life because your daughter is still in Spain.
Yes.
You have to fly back and forth, right, to visit them. Yeah. So.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What do you think about what she said?
Well, I mean, my daughters, they understand my life and they love, because I think it's very important to teach the children. You need to follow your targets. Okay, you need to compromise many things in the life, but you need to be strong and to follow what you believe. And if you believe art and you believe this country, you have to do it. Because if you don't do it, later in the future, you will be sorry all the time. I will say why I didn't that, Where's my aim, where's my soul, where's my,
Right.
So I teach this way, I follow my understanding to life.
And she also think about Vietnam as her second home as well, you think?
Well, they love Vietnam, both. They love very much, very, very much. Yeah, they enjoy it so much when they come here.
So after that, so many years here, what does Vietnam mean to you?
Well, that's my country. So I love Vietnam. I support Vietnam, and when I come to Europe, I support always Vietnam. So I think they ask me, of course, everybody, many times in the radio or now in the television or something like that, I support Vietnam.
And is it true that I read from somewhere that you want to spend the rest of your life here in Vietnam?
This is my project now. Yes. Many times I ask me, okay, can I come back to Italy? I was living in Italy many years. But I think, when I was in Italy, I will ask myself, what is happening today in Huancayo? Or what is happening in that time, I will miss so much that I will say, no, I cannot leave. Okay, I will move, but I cannot leave. I'm really contaminated.
So thank you so much, architect Salvador Arroyo, for your love and dedication to Vietnam over the past 12 years. And I wish you all the best for your future work. It could be in paintings, could be in poem writings, books, and also architecture design.
So thank you to you. It was a pleasure to talk and to express these beautiful experiences of my life in Vietnam. Thank you so much.
Yes. And that has brought us to the end of this edition of Talk Vietnam in Quảng Ninh Museum. I hope that you enjoyed it, and see you again next time.